Hi, I'm Chad with Move Forward Guitar. This lesson is from our series, How to Memorize Guitar Notes. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about sharps and flats. First off, if you like all the diagrams from this series, including the diagrams from this lesson, you can download our free e-guide, Memorize Guitar Notes. But I am working on it right now as I'm filming this lesson, so it might not be available as you're watching the lesson. But once it is available, a link will pop up on the screen that will allow you to download it. And like I said, it's free, so there's no reason not to download it when it is available. This is part 8 from our series, How to Memorize Guitar Notes. If you'd like to go back and start at the beginning, you can click the link on the screen. So this is just a quick lesson to talk about the sharps and flats. In the last lesson, we talked about the natural notes, which don't have any sharps or flats. They're just A through G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then it starts back over at A. And as you know, at this point, the sharps and flats fall in between all the natural notes except B and C and E and F. And I already touched on this in the last lesson, but I just want to make sure that you're perfectly clear on it as you're memorizing your fretboard, because it's extremely important to understand this. So if you followed the last lesson and you took the time to go over that and learn it, you would know all the natural notes at this point. You would know where to find them. And I'm not saying that if you're watching this lesson you need to know where all your natural notes are really quickly. I'm just saying that in the last lesson I gave you a trick that you could use to learn them if you just work on it over and over. But don't think that you have to have them all memorized at this point. I'm just talking about as you're going through this in the future. So if you followed the lessons, you would know where all your natural notes are. And as I said, the sharps and flats fall in between all the natural notes. So as you can see on your screen right now, again, are all the natural notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And every fret that is blank without a dot on it is where one of the sharps or flats would fall, or actually a sharp and a flat because they're inharmonic equivalents. So for example, between F and G, you have a sharp and a flat right here, and it would either be an F sharp or a G flat. Because if you raise the F 1/2 step, which is 1 fret on the guitar, you would get an F sharp, but if you lower the G 1/2 step or 1 fret, you would get a G flat. So once you know where all your natural notes are, it's easy to find all your sharps and flats. Because if you landed anywhere, for example, if you were landed on a note right here and wondering what this note was, well, if you know this is a D and you know this is an E, you know that this note right here is either a D sharp or an E flat. And what you call it just depends on the musical situation, which we'll talk about later. That's not so important right now. Right now you can just call it both, so that you really nail down in your mind that it's either a sharp or a flat, which are inharmonic equivalents, which means they're the same note with a different name. For example, this is either an F sharp or a G flat, but they're both the exact same note, exact same pitch. So that's why learning the natural notes is so important, because once you have the natural notes down, it's really easy to find the sharps and flats. So I encourage at this point just to really focus on the natural notes. Once you have those down, just know that anytime you land on a note between a natural note, it's a sharp or a flat. So between the A and the B is A sharp or B flat. And that's just because you're raising the A 1/2 step or lowering the B 1/2 step. And sharp means that you're raising, flat means that you're lowering. So if we added in all the sharps and flats, it looks a little overwhelming. But again, just remember, if you know your natural notes, it's really easy to find your sharps and flats. And here's all the sharps and flats by themselves. And in an upcoming lesson, I'm going to actually teach you how all the natural notes actually fall into one scale, and all the sharps and flats actually fall into one scale, so that if you learn those two scales, it's really easy to memorize where these notes are. But for right now, like I said, just focus on the natural notes, and then in between all the natural notes, except B and C and E and F, because those are only a 1/2 step apart, you'll have a sharp or a flat, which will have the same name of the notes that it falls in between. So if it's falling between A and B, it's either A sharp or B flat. So that's just a quick lesson on finding all the sharps and flats. Like I said, in an upcoming lesson, I'm going to go deeper into this and show you a scale that contains all the natural notes and a scale that contains all the sharps and flats, so that if you memorize those two scales, you're going to have a really easy way to memorize all the natural notes and memorize all the sharps and flats and see where they land on your fretboard. But that's in an upcoming lesson. You can go ahead and move on to the next lesson, where I'm going to teach you a trick for quickly finding all the G, A, and B notes on your fretboard. And be sure to download the e-guide. All the diagrams are in there, and be sure to subscribe, because we add at least one new lesson every day.